well. That way I can see comments.
All right, so we should be live now. We're starting to process live.
Okay.
So yeah, I've been at work all day, but I've been getting lots of like alerts on my phone from all sorts of people, including Nate. Um, about this news, this PWCC eBay news, and so um, I'm actually going to be live. I was actually planning on going live tonight at around 9 p.m. I'll still be doing that with another guest. But yeah, Nate and I thought it'd be. I have about like an hour in between like my just getting off work and going to dinner, and I thought it might be nice for Nate and I to and I think Nate wanted to also like chat about this with a group of people. So we thought we'd do it, live on YouTube. So Nate, what do you think, man? What are
Yeah.
your first takes?
I mean, just these are just my opinions, but I think it's crazy that eBay blasted this out to their consumer base instead of, doing something a little bit more private or even, low down, but just them sending a blanket message through email, not even like an official announcement, is pretty crazy to me.
Yeah. Think,
If I
man.
had to guess, it's
What?
probably some sort of liability issue that they just wanted to let as many people know as possible to distance themselves.
Yeah.
And then now that PWCC's released an official statement as well, saying that eBay was committing perjury, and that's PWCC's statement. Um, I think they're also just trying to distance themselves. So it's kind of a crazy situation overall, but a lot of people are questioning, like, what happens with everything that's at PWCC? Are buyers gonna or are sellers gonna be able to withdraw the stuff without incurring some sort of fee? Because PWCC's contract says that they have a hold of anything you send to auction until it sells. So there's going to be a lot of questions about that, the vault.
That
So a
was
lot
the
of
first thing.
uncertainty in the air.
The first thing that my mind went to was the vault, and that because they just had all those deals, and I know so many of my friends just sent so much of their stuff to the vault, and I was just like, whoa, you know.
Yeah, I have quite a bit at the vault as well.
Yeah.
Um, I'm keeping it in there for now just to see how it plays out, because I think it'd be worse to withdraw it in the chaos. And,
Yeah.
with so many people withdrawing, I could see PWCC somehow mixing up orders and stuff. And I just don't want to risk that with my stuff. Rather just hold steady and see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, my other first reaction was just like, gosh, this sucks. Like it's just like another, just drama, but this time like a big corporate one that from, two of the biggest companies that we, deal with and depend on for platforms. Um, it's funny. I was like, and even just as small as like on Patreon, we were going to start doing like a monthly PWCC auction night through like a Discord we were going to set up and like do commentary and talk about the prices. And I was even going to start, picking out some prices from those things because and I follow PWCC every month because it's such a good indicator, I think, of where the market is because there's so many eyes on those auctions versus if you pick out any sort of like random auction throughout the week, it could just be that a bunch of people missed that one. But generally on PWCC, unless you're worried about show bidding, ironically, it's a great place to get a sense of like, when there are all those eyes, what are these cards selling for? So
Yeah, it's definitely interesting because there's always
yeah,
been like some degree of shill bidding in the market, and I'm not saying that PWCC did it or anyone else in particular, but
yeah,
with any sort of auction, there's always the concern of shill bidding. So it's just interesting to see eBay make such a public announcement.
yeah,
But I also don't think that negates all of the sales on PWCC because they have so many cards. Like the mass majority are probably fine in my opinion. And I don't know if they have shilled anything, but if they did, I doubt it was every single listing, you know.
Yeah.
So
I mean, just and obviously like the wording, of
yeah,
this was just it honestly the whole thing just seems kind of unprofessional and strange. Like
yeah,
it and so public. And then also PWCC saying like we were shocked, and whether whether or not I don't know, it's sort of political games, they're public opinion games they're playing back, but it's like these are not YouTubers. These are
yeah,
these are huge, companies, particularly in eBay's, and these are big businesses in a booming sector. So it's strange. It's really strange that this happened publicly and wasn't handled privately. And I wonder what kind of details are going to come out around all of this. I would just think that there's just so much money on the line here,
mhm,
that it would be something that would have been, instinctively, I would have thought would have been like, talked about privately. And, and the implication here is like, you have some employees or someone who's like heading the PWCC company or something is like, there's like a massive amount of shill betting problem across all these things. It also makes, I think, us as Pokemon buyers, I think it causes anxiety in the market of like, how shilled is all of this, to your point before, Nate, of like, you feel it isn't, and I don't feel it is either necessarily. But, I mean, I did feel really shocked at certain times this year and really shocked on certain
mhm.
items throughout this year. And of course, I felt like there's a decent chance some of those items were shill bid. And it's, brings those questions of like, is this a, friend or the seller of the card who's doing it, who's completely unrelated to PWCC, which is something that unfortunately always happens on eBay or any any auction platform that can happen, or is this some sort of like orchestrated you know um thing by PWCC and or a single or a couple people at PWCC? And so these are the things that like I think we're all just gonna sit back and wait to learn more about. Yeah, what do you
Yeah.
think of all that? I mean, it's really interesting.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll ever find out, to be honest, just
Yeah,
because unless it goes to a public lawsuit where, we can see the details, I just don't think we're gonna find out much. Most likely it'll be some sort of internal settlement to save both companies face, because I don't think, unless one company has like really a shut and close case, like I don't think either walk out of this unscathed if it goes into like a
yeah,
public lawsuit.
that's a
But
bad
I
look.
do agree, like, and once again, I'm not saying that PWCC did anything, but there are some items that ended, higher than I thought they would, and they could be, the submitter shilling. It could have just gone that high. Like nobody will ever know. I think that's part of, having an unregulated market as
Yeah,
well. So you have to make your own judgment call there. But it'll be interesting to see like what happens to the vault items and the auction items, because as far as I know, PWCC's auction contract says that you can't take back items once they're sent
yeah,
in. So I wonder if they're going to make an exception, since people are no longer going to get the exposure of eBay, if they go to their own platform. And then for the vault, I'd be curious to see like what happens to anyone who has their vault stuff leveraged, because I know
mhm,
PWCC has been like pushing out like vault loans and stuff like this where you can leverage your collection, but you can't pull anything out. And if you don't pay it back within a certain time, or it just gets sold.
mhm.
So that's another interesting thing to look at, because once again, if they go to their own platform, we don't know if they'll have that same exposure. So
Yeah, I wish I had those contracts in front of me and could read like, what is the language and was a lawyer
yeah,
who would know what to do with that. But like are people now allowed to get out of that, because it's part of the contract or something that they can sell through eBay or some sort of connection through eBay, or is that not part of it?
yeah.
Um,
I'm sure there will be a lawyer, probably from the sports card world, that's going to analyze these contracts and let us know.
yeah, yeah, I
I
will look
also
up
think
on that.
like a lot of this is probably more on the sports side, if I had to guess.
Yeah.
because even like looking at Pokemon as a whole, we're a fraction compared to sports.
Sure.
So the value of like shilling a Pokemon card versus shilling a sports card is much less. Assuming that even happened. So I think Pokemon is kind of just a side effect, and we're all here panicking, but who
I
knows?
just, yeah, I just really don't like, I really don't like the language. Again, just my opinion. It's like you come out with a public statement that doesn't make any specific like attacks or allegations, and then why do it publicly?
Yeah,
It just feels, it's strange. Like it doesn't feel very professional. And you've had a relationship with PWCC for a long time, and you're just going to come out and say that without giving direct. I don't know. It just seems strange. But again, it's kind of like this has just come from a dude on a couch, like who's watching the
yeah,
situation happen. I don't know the ins and outs, but
yeah.
uh,
I was super confused about that as well because when eBay's announcement happened, I was like talking in Discord to some people, and I was like, they had to have contacted like upper level at PWCC to give them a heads up. Like, there's no way they just like did this blanket statement.
it
Not
feels
not
like
even
some
like as
random
an
person at
announcement.
eBay just decided to send that out. Like that's how that statement reads to me.
Yeah,
It's like, no big deal. Like we're just gonna throw a statement out.
yeah, and it wasn't even to like all countries either. I think it was only to the
Yeah.
US as well. And I don't know if it went to every eBay user, only eBay users who have bought from PWCC.
Yeah.
But it's just crazy. And then PWCC makes the announcement that it blindsided them, which,
Yeah.
that could be true and it could be false. Like, we'll never know that as well,
Yeah.
short of like, this going public. But yeah, that it's crazy to me how two big companies are acting like children and duking it out over like, emails and Instagram.
Yeah. It really is. Like it's really shows that like that's like the day and age we're living in now. This, like it's all these like this is how public relations seems to be done is through Instagram and through all these, how these public fights are happening. I guess in the old days they would have had them both on like a news channel and there would have been rules and
Yeah.
on old fashioned media. But yeah, I
So
think
like
I
in the
think too
early
obviously
days,
similar to your point about sports versus Pokemon within PWCC, we have to think about like what fraction of eBay's business is just tiny little PWCC, even if PWCC is massive for cards. And so, although it's interesting, right? Because eBay, the timing of it's all interesting because eBay is obviously making, has been they unveiled their market tools that their card tracking tools they've unveiled. Been taught like on the main page is it's been showing
mhm.
Pokemon and pushing cards this year, and PWCC has been building out right this other platform, moving away from eBay. Yeah, it's like
It is very odd timing, and
yeah,
I'm not a conspiracy theorist, so y'all can form whatever opinions y'all have.
yeah,
But it is weird that both companies are building out their own platform. But
yeah,
I mean, speaking of other auction houses as well, though, like if I was like Probstein or one of the other ones that did my auctions through eBay, I'd also be concerned
yeah.
because eBay has to look into them at this point, because if they don't, then PWCC can just say like this is discrimination, like you're only looking into us but not other auction houses that may or may not have shill bidding like that.
There are tons of shill bidding on Probenstein right now.
Yeah.
I don't think that's Probenstein doing it. Like they're like that's
Mhm.
eBay. There's tons of shill bidding on eBay. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's like I made a whole video on shill bidding, and also shill bidding. There are a lot of different types of shill bidding. There's
Mhm.
also shill bidding, like defensive shill bidding, where you're bidding on an item that you own. I call it defensive. You actually own the item and you don't want it to sell too low because you want the appearance that your item is still very high. And so
Mhm.
people will shill bid those items up and then just not pay for it. But it wasn't the person shill bidding their own item or a friend of the person. It was a person who just owned the item. So like there's a lot
Yeah.
like now it's a small minority of people doing it, but like they do it probably quite a bit. And like often some of these big ticket items are at risk for that sort of thing. It just really sucks that like we just have to deal with this crap and that people do this type of thing. And for me, it's like the way around this is to just like buy things that you like and have confidence in and you believe in the long term. If you are shill bidding and you're that anxious about like, I need to like shill bid it up because this item's crap, like it's like that should show you, right? That's the type of bubble mania. That's what I was seeing earlier on in the year and feeling a little bit, that type of thing shows you that a certain portion of people really feel like it's a bubble still, or like feel a need to do that. Like they're not going to get the money that they want, or they need to make these things appear more valuable than they might otherwise be. But I also think it's a product of the comp world, and a little bit of like the lack of sophistication, and this is very true in the sports card world too. There's a lack of sophistication around like if something sells, people are just like, well, that's the new comp, and then everyone wants that. And it's scary how effective that type of thing is, that you could shill bid one item and then it could change the next 10, it could be very effective across like 20 auctions, which presents that, which makes, provides that motivation, let's put it that way, for a person to defensive shill bid, because because they want, it's effective, or it was effective this year because people didn't really, question new high sales. But I think it's tricky because you can the danger is then you just lose all faith, right? Or you could take it too far. And so you have to, I think, have that sort of balanced kind of pragmatic approach of like, wait and see, do your research. It's why seeing a card sell for one price over and over again a lot of times is going to make you more confident, than seeing one really high sale or one kind of oddly high sale, or all this type of stuff. But it's also interesting that PWCC blocked that you couldn't see, right? The timing of that too is interesting, right? That you could no longer see who was bidding. And they said that was a counter, that they were attempting to help with shill bidding, that shill bidding was an issue and they were working to crack down on it specifically. And that
it
corresponded
counterintuitive.
Yeah. And that corresponded. And then they argued that it was an anonymity thing, which then makes me like, the timing of that looks terrible, because it's like, well, they're just now they're hiding who is doing the bidding on these things, which might make it harder for us to track, or for people to look to see, is there someone shill bidding on lots of items, or is it the same person shill bidding and retracting who owns that eBay account and tracking that down? So, it's weird. I thought it was super weird at the time. I don't know if you remember that, Nate, when they did that, or what your reaction was, but a lot of weird.
I was really irritated when they did that, because I used to check on like every auction that I was interested in to see, and if I saw something suspicious, I would just hold off on that auction.
Me too.
So that was definitely irritating. eBay as an auction house also kind of promotes shilling, because they, like, whenever you want to try to set a reserve, they charge you extra fees and stuff like that. So, I wouldn't even be surprised if there were sellers who, maybe started auctions and then just set their own reserve with another account or something.
Their own. Yeah, exactly.
To avoid fees and whatnot.
Absolutely.
And I think it's like a platform-wide thing with any unregulated market. And I know I use that word a lot, but that's literally what Pokemon is. Like, it's not like we have someone who's like looking into, every single purchase, see if it goes through or whatnot. It's just what we perceive is a lot of, the prices that they end at. And with some things like the PWCC market research, it was nice to see what sales got paid for. Whereas eBay, if it's canceled, like, you can't even tell. And I know that was one thing that I did appreciate about PWCC. Also, eBay taking away best offer checking. And this has just happened in the last couple of weeks, but they've changed the code again to try to block people from checking best offers, which that's interesting as well. Like, they used to have that public that you could just check on the site, and them slowly removing that, I don't think is good for eBay as a whole. But everything is going in a direction where there's more privacy, and that is why collectibles is such a hard market to be an investor in as well, because a lot of these things you can be carried by the crowd's opinion, and making all of these calls yourself is a lot more difficult than like looking at the stock market and whatnot. Like this, you have so much information and you have to decide what's real and what's not, and how you value the card yourself. Like it's hard to rely on just past sales and comps in our market.
Yeah, I think it just makes experience more and more valuable, you
Yep.
know, and experience in other markets more and more valuable. And like, yeah, it's it's unfortunate, and you and I are definitely see eye to eye on all of this stuff around just transparency. And I think you and I have the same instinct. Whenever we see a little bit of that transparency pulled back, it raises that like, why?
Yeah.
like, and I guess the argument is, as you sort of alluded to, is the increased anonymity that maybe people want that anonymity. But, from my perspective, it's like, I don't think that's a good trade-off. I think that if you're bidding on these public auctions, like we see who's bidding and who won it, and we see the thing, like, I would rather people be able to see mine and then or see everyone's and be able to feel more comfortable that the same person isn't bidding on all of these things and then retracting, and every month it's the same guy doing it. And this, like, I would feel more comfortable losing a little bit of that anonymity personally to feel that we can see that increased transparency there. But there's always a line, right? I mean, there's always a line of like where there's just too much regulation, there's too much irritation for all this sort of stuff, and we lose sort of our anonymity and freedom. But for me, I disagreed with that. What they did.
I mean, it's definitely a fine balance because, with everything so difficult to find, it also makes it hard to legitimize our hobby as a whole.
Yeah.
If we have that transparency, it's a lot easier for other people to get in to participate in the market without 5 or 10 years of knowledge.
Yeah.
And although I do think there are a lot more YouTube channels that are helping with the knowledge portion, it's still, we have a very high barrier of entry if someone wants to get into it seriously versus just collecting and cracking a couple packs.
And it's really tricky this year too, because like a lot of the channels were people who sell a lot, and so it gives that incentives to like hype up the market. Like it's very like it's and I've had to deal with this whole year and self-check myself, and I'm sure other YouTubers have done the same. But it's like when I'm giving my bearish takes, I have a feeling in me of like, shh, Jake, because you own all of these things that you're giving bearish takes on, but then I'm just like, it goes back to what I said earlier of just like, I have confidence in the actual value of these things. And I believe that if people hear my true takes and what I think is genuinely going on, and if we like find consensus over time, I believe in this and other markets long term. And to echo what you said, which I think is exactly spot on, it's that type of confidence that allows new people to want to be here. Whereas if you come in and you feel like you're going to get a booster box that is resealed, or you come in and you feel like you're going to be shill bid out, you're buying one of these evolutions, fake proxy boxes that are everywhere right now, right? And you get scammed on that, and it just takes you out of the hobby. You listen to an influencer who you feel like was there to support you and was giving you good advice, and meanwhile they were kind of selling everything they were telling you to invest in, they've been selling to you all year, and they don't have any more of it. Like, and they kind of offloaded it onto you. So it's like, that's the type of stuff. And it's the same thing in the sports world, same thing in all these worlds that make it a worse time, less fun to be in the hobby, and thus decreases the value of everything, because it's not enjoyable anymore. It's like, I'm sick of the toxicity. I'm sick of the gatekeeping, on that topic too. I'm sick of the the shilling and the hype and all this stuff. And I just don't want to collect anymore. I don't want to do it. It's not worth it. It's not worth all the risk. And, but in the long run, like, these things will iron themselves out. And I think that it's just about a lot of us just kind of having these conversations right now. Like, I'm sure I think Squeaks is doing a live on this right now, lots of people just, putting out as from our honest takes. And like, as we learn more, like, we may shift our takes, right? This is just what we're experiencing immediately. But I think that type of thing helps.
Yeah, so. I agree. That's also one of the reasons why I don't like talking about specific cards unless someone like asks me an opinion. I'll give my opinion, but I don't like bringing up like a specific card to talk about. I don't like bringing like
Yeah,
attention to, something so specific in case it gives someone the wrong idea,
I know. It's a tough line. It's a tough line. It's why I find myself just all the time saying like, this is just my opinion, and then always like, here are also the risks and the cons, and then I say, I'm doing it because I believe in this positives, but I could end up being wrong. And I wouldn't want you to do what I'm doing and then lose a bunch of money because you followed what I was doing, that type of thing. And I think you and I
Yeah.
are both very aware of the risks involved in all this sort of stuff, and we factor that into our decision making. It's part of why I like to purchase things or be in things from that financial investment perspective that has a big margin, because
Mhm.
I am in cardboard taking on quite a bit more risk than I might be in a blue chip type stock or type company that I think is going to be around here for forever, that sort of thing. Particularly when we talk even like the non-Pokemon TCG stuff that I go into, because Pokemon of the card world is definitely one of the blue chip, the particularly on the vintage side, the blue chip type items you could buy. As you go further down the line, it just becomes more and more risky and speculative. But yeah, I don't know if let's see what people are saying. Do you have the chat pulled up?
Yeah, I do. Do you want me to start at
So
the
for
top and just scroll through it real quick?
Yeah, so for people who are just joining us, yeah, Nate and I, we just decided to like hop on for a little bit. I am going to dinner fairly soon, so we're literally just doing like a brief chat on this topic, I guess, just to share our immediate takes on what is huge news today. But we're
Yeah.
happy to respond to some questions or comments.
Yeah. Silphco Investments asked, has there been any evidence presented by eBay? And the answer is no for that. We don't know if any will be presented in the future. I would guess likely not unless it goes to a public lawsuit.
Yeah.
Let's see. And yeah, they're taking down all of their listings.
Yeah.
I don't think the accounts have been banned, but all of the listings are slowly getting removed.
I guess if I was a good YouTuber, I would have started with like what happened in case people didn't know. When I run this channel, I just like assume everyone already knows and is just like as nerdy and intense as us and has gotten like 3 or 4 text messages, from all their friends saying the news. But yeah. So
Yeah.
uh,
John Quinlan actually makes a funny point, but he says eBay's too lazy to take action on like fake card sellers that have been
yeah,
doing it for years, but they'll call out like show bidding.
yeah. John Quinlan saying that eBay is plays host to a lot of these sellers, enable shill bidding on their own auctions, etc., and people are just going to assume PWCC is a big bad and evil, is kind of targeting them. Yeah, for me, like that's definitely my take, unless eBay has specific evidence that like
Mhm.
something extra notoriously bad is going on here, where there are people within the company that are shill bidding this intentionally, or there's some sort of bad stuff happening. So we'll have to wait. But that's part of why it's just so weird that they just again came out with this kind of like vague statement, and now we're all here like what, you know. And they have to
Yeah.
know that people like us are going to jump on YouTube and talk about it. It's just very strange, right? It's
Yeah.
very odd. Like, what's the plan here?
Like, but part of me even thinks like, what if this is just like a marketing ploy for both companies? Like they just agreed behind the table. We're just gonna do this to generate buzz. Like, but declare our own selling platform
Yeah,
and push people
I
towards
think
eBay. Like it's just nutty, but
I'm Team PWCC. Well, I'm Team eBay. Like,
yeah, we'll have signs out on the lawns. But yeah, it's crazy. Some people were mentioning about like the 1 mil jungle box, like stuff like that's like there's no way PWCC like was the one behind that. Like if they're gonna, I'm assuming they're not just
that
completely
was
dumb. So
that was specifically, I think, from like Ms. Kiff's live stream, watchers of his live
yeah,
stream,
yeah,
that
I
like
remember
that.
it being a
Yeah,
streamer.
yeah, exactly. Because like he wanted to buy it, and then his members of his stream just like put it up to 1 million, so he couldn't get it or something like that to mess with him,
Yeah,
something like that.
it's. I,
But
I wonder. I mean, I don't think anyone studied this, but I'm sure whenever a YouTuber streams
yeah,
the auction block, there's probably more activity and shills and stuff as well.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, I remember when, I don't know if Pokey Rev is still doing it, but he did a couple, and some of those streamers did a couple PWCC live things. And, but all of that just goes to show you how delicate all of this is, and how much it's
Yeah.
like, it's such a Wild West that I think in Wild West, it's very easy to attack people, when instead it's just, you just have to understand that we're all in the Wild West here. And and like, you decide how ethical you're going to be, but like, there's probably people, like the vast majority of people are being like very, like very, very ethical, with a few people maybe not being ethical, but it's scary. And so it makes us more paranoid. Let's put it that way. Like there's a certain like paranoia about when I'm buying big items, because I know that I could get scammed, even if the odds are low. And that can make me a little bit more distrusting than maybe I should be. So we do have to be careful, I think, with like, allowing like little negative things to make us feel like the whole hobby is full of that. But it's tricky, but you also, and it's part of why I made videos on it, it's a real thing. And people who, like, I've heard influencers say, like, anyone who talks about like manipulation, or anyone who talks about market manipulation or market makers or people show bidding is like making it up, or like that doesn't happen. It's like no, like as soon as I made that video, I had so many people contact me and be like, oh, I do that, and I didn't even think it was that bad. Maybe I should rethink. Particularly the defensive show bidding was rampant from a lot of people.
Yeah, so. I mean, it all 100% happens. Like without a doubt, like
yeah.
people have a strong influence in the market. Like even Scott's Patreon, like whenever he does the underrated, as soon as he calls an underrated, you see the whole market disappear on whatever he calls.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, there's so much going on now that just we're in an age of the internet. So with auctions taking place online, it's just so easy to manipulate something. Like even like say Heritage, like there's such a large auction house, but they've had, I forget which streamer, but some streamer was streaming their video game auction and they got DDoSed and it went down. It's happened multiple blocks, but they've had to reschedule the auctions just because their servers, like everything was just backtracked. Some games sold low, it's just crazy.
Yeah. All this stuff is a great study on just human psychology and human behavior, and how the power of perception, the power of narratives, and the power of experts, right? It's like when an expert says something, even if it's irrational or average, take, all of us, experts have like average takes or wrong takes, but if an expert says it, it can have a certain kind of weight, and then people, two things will happen, right? Because when Scott says something, two things happen. You have the people who believe that Scott is probably like right or all knowing or something, or have that sort of idea. And so they're like, oh, it's definitely going to go up. And then you have the people who don't necessarily think that, but just watch that because they're waiting, because they know that everything Scott says will go up, and they get in really quick and then sell it the high and take advantage of that, and of those videos. And all of that creates that self-fulfilling prophecy of like, oh, he must have been right. It's like anything that corrects that quickly is hype. Mm-hmm. It's not real correction. Now, a lot of Scott's takes are probably also undervalued. And in the long run, because he knows a lot about the market, in the long run, a lot of his takes are probably going to go up from where they were initially. But the quick, huge rising in price, like for example, the Master Scroll, right? The Master Scroll was worth like 2,000-3,000. Scott talked about it specifically, and very quickly became a $10,000-$15,000 card, even before a lot of the boom happened. Now, that might have very well been an undervalued card, and Scott might have brought attention to it, but it wouldn't have gone up that quick. Like, it doesn't make any sense why it would have gone up that quick and all other similar cards didn't go up. So there are these types of things that you can see. I made a video on the lenticular deoxys, and TBJ did it around the same time. As soon as I made that video, like a lot of them sold off of eBay. The price went quite up a bit. A lot of people. Now, some of that is people hearing about a card for the first time and becoming interested, but also part of that is that expert effect. And the third part of it is just the people who are flippers trying to get on the thing, and Z and Geo, I think, was here in the chat. He could talk about his experiences, once in a while talking about things, then them selling out on eBay, So it's the Wild West. It's crazy. It's crazy. But we all want to talk about it and share what we like. That's the
Yeah,
hard part, Nate.
but that's why, like, I don't think I could ever say that I'm an expert in something just because like there's no like rating in our hobby. It's not like we take a test and get certified. So like just announcing that you're the expert of X, Y, and Z like doesn't make it so. And it's rough because it's hard to determine who you should watch on YouTube if you're new to the hobby. So
Sure.
there's a chance that someone just gets swept into like a hype channel or something like that, someone who's calling themselves the Pokemon expert or whatnot, and people are susceptible to that, and that's kind of sad to see. But also, oh, I lost my train of thought.
It's sad to see
Oh,
people calling them experts and getting pushed into the hype channels, is what you were saying.
yeah, I know. Definitely another factor in play is that for our hobby, there's just not a lot of availability for most things. Like if there's short of like sealed modern booster boxes and like modern singles, there's probably not more than 100 of any one thing listed. So it's very easy for
Right.
someone to make an announcement for the market to go dry, and then the next person can post it for whatever they want. And then we'll see people start to beat that price slowly, but whatever that benchmark they set, it tears down from there. And it's very easy to manipulate prices like that. Even I used to play Yu-Gi-Oh back in the day, and Yu-Gi-Oh is a very like play-based game. Like there's not a lot of collectors in it, or there weren't back in the day. So there were people who would do buyouts on like things that were very good in the card game itself, and you
Yeah.
could buy out the biggest market, which was TCG Player, and you could significantly affect the price because everyone else would just list it for 4 times the price. And that's something that you see on the collectible side as well nowadays, especially when an announcement is made. All it takes is 10 or 15 people to buy 10 copies each, and then the market's dry, and it's
Yeah.
suddenly something that was not necessarily scarce looks scarce until new people start listing.
I mean, and even honestly, with like modern PSA cards, the same thing happened this year because PSA was so backed up, right? So like the same, like honestly, vintage was less. There was more vintage, even though there's going to be less in the world. There's more vintage on PSA than there was on eBay, excuse me, than there was modern of a lot of these sets. So it's and it's such a great point, Nate, and mathematically can be illustrated so well by just looking at like market cap, right? Like it doesn't take one individual with $10,000-$15,000 could easily target some like fairly premium cards, right, off of eBay, pull them all up, and then relist one at a higher rate, and then someone on YouTube will make a video, oh, new card sold at new price, or top price, and then people like, ooh, like that, there's movement there, I should buy, right? And so what I try to teach is like the exact opposite. It's like, now when there's movement somewhere, the correct response is like, okay, did something fundamentally shift? And this is true for stocks too, right? Did something fundamentally shift? Is the underlying, do I have a different understanding of the underlying asset right now that makes me think that this item was undervalued before and now is correctly more valued, is more correctly valued? Or is my feeling that this item is more valuable completely built off the price that I just saw it sell, or just the comp? And yeah, the power of that is unbelievable. And that's where you get, tulip bubbles. That's where you get, extreme examples of like intense mania that, and for me, like part of how I fight that, I guess, is I have my sort of own sense that I try to have like kind of a strong sense of what I feel like something should be worth. And that's just my perspective, given what everything else is and given where we're at in the market. And so there are items that are selling for $1,500 that I value at like $70. Like, and I won't say which ones they are, but like there literally are items in the Pokemon market that I feel are that overvalued that I put at like, $60 to $70 that I would pay for as a collector. And so what I would suggest for people is like, do the same thing, right? But have your own evaluations. It's like, and if it's really off like that, two things. One, the market is either just very different than you, which is totally valid, right? And that you're sort of wrong in the sense that your opinion is right for you, but the broader market disagrees with you. And so the price thus is high. Or there's a little bit of a temporary kind of mania, and maybe your sense of that card is actually going to be a little bit more broadly the sense of that card as time goes on, and it might pull back to that price. And so I think that that way of thinking can both help you collect and own things that you really value for the price, for good prices that you feel happy, that you feel really good about the price you got it, and you didn't just buy it for continued future growth. And two, I think can really help you. You can use that collector knowledge, that collector instinct, to really suss out some of that kind of being pushed by, intentionally or unintentionally by some individuals, whether there are massive buyouts happening of an item or an influencer talked about it, that type of thing.
Yeah, I rarely buy things that I hear about from other people.
Yeah.
If I hear other people are buying a ton of something, like I usually like I'll take note,
Yeah.
because I like to know what's going on, but I will not buy into it. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, I like to function like in the niche things, like not always, but I don't even like competing with some buy lists that I think are too high. Like there's sometimes stores like, Collectors, Cashier, Troll and Toad with insane buy list prices.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I just tell, like, if someone comes to me, I'm just like, for this stuff, I think it's better for you to actually buy list it, because I honestly would not be able to give you as much. Like, I just don't value it as much. You have to really make your own call on so many things, because information and what you do with it is power in this hobby.
Yeah.
Um,
And I like to look for, like, my personal, I guess, strategy is I like to look for things I feel very confident in and be patient and wait for those, and then be very aggressive. And that tends to be my style, where I will be like way more aggressive than everyone else in a certain area. I like that. I like when I feel like I see something other people don't, and I can go after that, versus, some of the safer, and I think, and I want to make a video on modern, actually saying that I think that I've been overly critical on modern on this channel in the way that I've like expressed my opinions. And I want to like make a video kind of explaining what I mean by that, and why I don't personally invest in modern Pokemon. And a lot of it has to do with that sort of like, I'm really looking for the very undervalued items that people aren't paying attention to, that people aren't looking at, and then going after them aggressively, and not the items that every single person is aware of and have just come out, and these types of things. So
yeah, I cannot stand it. Like there's very few things that I can't stand in this hobby. And
yeah,
one of them is when someone takes a modern card or like a random common and post it, oh, PSA 10 pop one. That bugs me so much. It's like either nobody bothered to grade this, or you're the first one to grade it. And it doesn't mean it's probably not even worth the grading fee like that you paid to get this done.
yeah.
But it's just crazy to me how people will just say pop one like it's something rare, and then other people will actually buy into it.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, and it clearly, like, and there may be someone watching this channel right now, but like, and I apologize, but like, there were YouTube channels that made videos saying like, I have the only of this card in the world, right? And it's like a loser card, like it's a card that like, you have the only card in the world of that, because no one else wanted to grade it. How long? When will you be ready to? Sorry, I'm just checking to see when my
Yeah,
dinner.
we can end this at any time. It's
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
just
yeah. For those
casual chat, I know.
I know we kind of went off on on other things as we do, because I don't, bringing it back, I guess, to PWCC. I'm not sure there's much more to say, at this point about it. I think, I mean, we can take a look at the comments here, but I think, oh, Squeaks is in the chat. Did you finish your live, Squeaks? I want to watch some of it. I'm interested in Squeaks' take on all this, although I bet it'll probably be fairly similar to ours, as most people's takes will probably be fairly similar. But
Yeah, I was in Squeaks until you messaged me. Uh, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this affects the market. I think short term, a lot of our stuff might sell a little easier, since we won't have, thousands of cards flooding the market every month. Availability, I think, will die down in the short term, but in the long term, it'll be interesting to see where all of these cards go, whether that's their personal platform or they let us take it out and then, sell it ourselves or send it to other auction houses. But I think this will lower the amount of Pokemon on eBay significantly, even even in the long term.
I think that's a great place to take this discussion as we kind of wind down. I also think about, I have mixed feelings, and I'm not sure exactly the term I should use here, but on the fractionaling out or the diluting or the spreading out of like all these different platforms, right, that are starting to sell Pokemon cards more, right? For
Mhm.
Heritage, yes, and has for a while, but like there's a little bit more in Golden, right? There's I think, isn't Leonhardt starting one or has started
Yeah,
one?
he announced
Rare
Rare
Candy.
Candy
Yeah, yeah,
is
yeah,
his
yeah.
platform.
You might know more than I do, but I know that he's planning on doing that. So they're going to be, just like there are lots of companies who want to get a piece of the pie of the grading. There are a lot of
Mhm.
companies who want to get a piece of the pie of the money that eBay is making off of all this, including PWCC, which is maybe some of the underlying what's beef or what's going on here, but PWCC moving and preparing to move a lot of their business even before this right off of eBay. Um, and with that, I think that it provides people who are very engaged and have the time and effort to keep track of all of these various things. It provides opportunity now that they're not all in one place, but it also forces you to like put more work in. So I do wonder if there will be tracking tools. Like this is another thing, places where you can kind of watch all of these things at once. Is it gonna be more useful and important to use these like snipe bidding tools, that because now there's going to be multiple auctions going off on multiple pages all in different time, at once, and like and keeping track of them is going to be so difficult. So you're going to want to, put those snipe bids in as soon as you see them so you don't forget about the auction, tracking all those different auctions. I know I got a lot of my best deals off of like Heritage this year and not eBay. So, there's just spreading all that out. What do you think about, and for your, I guess, business or, collecting habits, do you look forward to the spreading of that out? Is it a double-edged sword? What are your opinions on it?
I think it's definitely a double-edged sword. It's going to take a lot more of my time, which is
Yeah,
something that I value quite a lot.
yeah,
Um, but it also gives the opportunity for steals on certain things that go under the radar. A lot of the smaller auction houses
yeah,
might have, things that go 20-30% under market or even more than that. Like you never know.
yeah,
I think it's going to be a huge commitment if you want to track every single auction house and every single block, even just to view what they have upcoming. Um, like I don't, I think if I really wanted to do it efficiently, I'd probably have to make an Outlook calendar for every single um, just event that's happening with an auction, and that's only tracking the large ones too.
yeah,
Like you still have all the platforms with like who might have like 1 day auctions, 3 day auctions, even like right now the great thing about eBay is it has PWCC or had PWCC, still has probe sign and all of those places that you can track on one platform. Whereas it already takes me time to go look at the heritage ones upcoming and then golden, and there's a bunch of auction houses that like very casually do trading cards and collectibles.
yeah,
um, so I think it'll provide opportunity, but it will come at the cost of time.
yeah. And I worry about also, will it, and I'm not significantly worried, but it might be something I might look at, particularly in the short term, as all this gets figured out. Is that I know that you said price is actually going up because there might be right less of these cards available, given all the situation. But when all these auction houses do open and they're more spread out, you actually might see auction prices going lower because it's spread out and people don't know where to look anymore, or people can't track all of them. So it will be interesting. And I think it goes back to that whole argument about like, where should you auction your cards off of,
Yeah.
that's a great discussion. It's a really important discussion, about like, where do you sell your cards, which auction house do you choose? And for me, it depends on the value of the card and the specific card. And I didn't know it's just choose one. Now the PWCC isn't connected to eBay. Am I going to rethink? Am I going to send stuff to PWCC anymore? I have to think about that.
Give me 1 second. Someone's knocking on the hotel door.
Oh, please, no problem. Yeah, so we are going to wind down shortly, but we appreciate you guys all hanging out with us. And just a quick chat. I'm actually going to be live again, as I said earlier in the stream, tonight at 9:00 with another guest. But Nate reached out to me and was just like, "Yo, man, I want to talk about this." And I always want to hang out and take advantage of that. So that's what we're doing. I guess to round down, Nate, do you feel like there's anything that you want to talk about that we didn't cover regarding the situation? If you want to take a second.
Not particularly. I think we hit most of like the main topics. I didn't really want to get into like anything specific. Just wanted to talk to you about it and give some opinions. But to answer your question about buying, like how buyers are going to find auction houses, I think that's going to be a lot more difficult as well. I wouldn't even be surprised to see middlemen pop up that specifically help shift your cards to the best place to auction them or whatnot. It wouldn't surprise me with how much just segregation we're having between all of these places to sell.
Capitalism at work, a shifting market at work. It shifting issues with some of these bigger, right? PSA getting backed up, and then lots of new grading card companies coming in. eBay, PWCC, these types of issues. Maybe some other auction houses or other places trying to take advantage of that, and then with more auction houses, new businesses coming out trying to help you track the data or get connected to the right one, or
if someone takes my idea, at least tag me for it, because I think just having a middleman do it gives you a lot of negotiating power with the auction houses, because every auction house will negotiate fees to some extent.
So my goal as my Patreon gets bigger, and my goal is to add more and more functions, and so things like that, things like helping, like having conversations with people about specifically where to sell. I think there are lots of different consulting. Right now I'm doing sort of just like a blanket, $50 consulting. I think there are ways, and I said on one of the live streams that we might get rid of that. And like everyone who does consulting with me is like, are you getting rid of it? I was a bit clumsy in the way that I just kind of dropped that. But my thinking about making it more useful, because I think one of the issues with consulting is it can kind of be like, am I really getting value? What are we going to talk about? Am I really getting value? And I think a lot of people do, but I think making it even targeted, where it's like consulting for this specific thing that I want within this. Like, I think those types of decisions and services could be really valuable. Just give me 1 second. I'm almost done. So thank you so much, man. It's always great talking to you. I'm sure we will, we definitely will. Maybe we'll make this a thing. If there's ever breaking news, I'll have you on and we could discuss it or something, because it's fun hanging out, and really appreciate the time.
Yeah, I appreciate you taking the time out of your day.
Thanks, man. And for all you guys watching, appreciate it. Again, I'll be back at 9 p.m. Eastern in a couple hours after dinner, and hopefully I'll see a lot of you guys then. All right, man.